is in front of us. The state of South Carolina said that the students were in fact in a gunfight, a shootout with the Highway Patrol, and they had no alternative but to return the fire. They said that the students were charging toward them so that they would go downtown and burn the city of Orangeburg down, like Watts. And so Burn Baby Burn become, again, a kind of catalyst that we hear when we talk about events in which there is a fire. It's always, or it's Black Lives Matter, or whatever it may be, it's always that, it's the rioting students, it's the agitator, it's the agitation. So I think it's important for us to recognize that we have a responsibility as a community to continue to tell the story of the Orangeburg Massacre. It has been covered up, and it is intentionally covered up, and nobody has corrected the truth, and the state of South Carolina has taken absolutely no action to try to reconcile this issue. I also want to start out with a quote, and it's from Stephen Gurlett. I expect to pass through this world but once. Any good, therefore, that I can do, or any kindness that I can show to any human being, let me do it now. Let me not defer or neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again. And I'm saying that because for many of us who were involved in during that time, I talked to some of the older students, and they told me that some of them that were in the student body in 1968 had a difficult time coming down 26, coming back to the school, because the memories were so distorted of what they remember about being in Orangeburg and at South Carolina State. It is that the state of South Carolina did the bait and switch. They took the position that they were correct in harnessing on the campus the students' activities, the students the victims, made the students the perpetrators of the shooting and the incident that took the lives of 3 and impacted tremendously 40 other students who were in fact wounded. So I take this time to step out today. It was not an easy walk to get here. And that's part of the reason why I don't do this anymore. Okay, I'm here today in the memory of the 3 students killed, Samuel Hammonds, Delano Middleton, and Henry Smith, along with the close to 40 students injured here 54 years ago in the hands of the South Carolina Highway Patrol. 54 years ago, under the cover of darkness, their lives were snatched away. 54 years ago, under the jurisdiction of police and rule of segregation, in the buttocks, in the ball of their feet, in their backs, and in their heads. 54 years ago, and justice, and just like the refuge they were seeking is still elusive. I'll get my glasses straightened out in just a minute and do a lot better. Please. Me. I stood in fronts of crowds like this for years with a message about what happened the night of February 8th on the campus of South Carolina State College, now university, and what didn't happen in the weeks, months, and years after. No thorough investigation, no blue ribbon commission, no truth, no reconciliation, no restitution, nothing, not a thing. For the next few minutes, I want to remind us to put it on the record once more that we have to be vigilant, we have to persevere, and we have to keep the story as much alive on the front pages and in the front of people's minds as we can, as many people as we can. We all have that responsibility, all of us. All of us have stories to tell. We need to have all of us need to represent that, and because if we don't, then we have 54 years of inaction that will show what can happen in the next 54 years. So let's not repeat it. You know, we won't get a chance to look at this again. We won't get a chance to do this all over again for another 54 years. So let's get it right now. Those who have studied the South have spoken on how trapped in the inglorious past and living in the random now has caused places like South Carolina to suffer. While one South Carolinian distinguished resident essayist, James Dabbs, author of books like Southern Heritage, 1958, and Who Speaks for the South, 1964, spoke about the coalition of blacks and whites that could, quote, evolve a diverse but united society better than any the South has ever known, unquote. In Orangeburg in 1968, the students were not invited to that evolution. Sitting outside of segregated bowling alleys and more, they questioned not just why, not just when, but how the world could change if they didn't peacefully push for it to change. We had to do it, and we had to recognize that we had to do it because there was nobody else that was going to do it for us. Okay? And that's just not a generational thing, but that's a thing in a community that wants to live. Peaceful word. No guns, no gumption to confront the status quo, and a campus bonfire to keep warm, to lift spirits, to throw out light in the darkness, made darker by the shadows of racism and white supremacy. This is not what the 9 officers from the State Highway Patrol chose to see. Instead of useful optimism of civic engagement, they saw a threat. Instead of standing down, the officers armed themselves with double-aught buckshots, extra lethal ammunition, strong enough to kill a deer, an elephant, an oxen. It is 3 different grades of firepower between that they had in their guns and what you can find in bird shots. The double-aught buckshot, if you were close, it would tear a big hole in you. If you were far away, it had about 8 pellets in it that were the size of a .38 that would just spread out and hit a lot of different people. The students were outnumbered, outgunned, and we still don't know what the signal was that led to the barrage of gunfire. What we do know is that the piece of wood thrown at an officer, the only documented assault on an officer, happened a full 10 minutes before an officer fired in the air the first shot that rang out. A search of the campus found no weapons. The students did not have any weapons at all and did not exchange gunfire. The National Guard, who was also on the scene, never even loaded their guns. And in response to the carnage, to the portrayal of youth shot in the back by the very state patrol who was supposed to protect them, there were lies and then there were gag orders. The governor at the time claimed that the students were influenced. For the governor's office, when the shooting took place, said that I was the big N-word on the scene. That was his response to the tragedy. Later, a SLED officer would testify that he saw me climb on the hood of a fire truck, click a bic, and say, "Burn, baby, burn." That was never a slogan for black folk. That started out with Watts and how they projected what that was. So that was something that was created by the media to talk about rebellions and riots, whatever disposition that was going on anywhere else. It was always burn, baby, burn. And anytime there was a fire during a demonstration, we would use that rhetoric, and that was the rhetoric that whites detest. So they were in favor of doing whatever was necessary to get rid of it. I was eventually charged with riot. I never got on top of a fire truck, and I had a kangaroo court. And when I got to court, I was first started out with 5 different charges. I was charged with broken into the house next to the administration building over there. Burglary. I was supposed to have taken the wood off the house and took it over, drug it over, and started the bonfire. And then arson, and then assault with intent to kill a police officer. And the last one was riot. Those were the charges that I was facing. And when I was told that by the judge or the magistrate, I went to Fantasia. And some people that know what Fantasia was, just a mix of all kinds of crazy stuff. And so I took the position that I needed to call my attorney and turn that over to him. And that's what I, in fact, did. But I'm telling you about this because I want you to understand that it wasn't just getting arrested and going to jail and coming back home and all that kind of stuff. And so what I'll do is I'll skip down a little bit and tell you about some of the other things that happened. That night, I was fingerprinted and pictures taken over in the Pink Castle. And then I was taken to ICC. And by 1:30, I was in jail in ICC down in Columbia. The next morning when I got up, I was asking some of the inmates who were walking down the outside where I was, and they told me that I was on the cell block that housed death row inmates. And I was just thinking about the insult to injury that was going on. And I knew I had to stay focused because I couldn't tell what was going on and where I might be. And then later on, when I ended up going to to trial, the first row in the courthouse was Highway Patrol, sitting shoulder to shoulder. And it was a kangaroo court for all practical purposes. And they had me tried for 3 charges: conspiracy to riot, incitement to riot, and riot. The judge directed the verdict on the conspiracy and the incitement because in South Carolina it takes 2 or more people to have a riot. And the judge asked where was the evidence, and at that point a SLED officer the attention of the judge, and he said, well, I saw him commit a crime. Even though the sheriff and the chief of police said that they saw me doing absolutely nothing on the 6th, they decided to change the date of the indictment from the 8th, and then I was tried. I was being tried on an incident that happened on the night of the 6th. Now, what that incident was that the SLED officer said he had taken notes. So they adjourned court, came back, and I was waiting on him to present, and he told the judge he couldn't find the notes, but he remembered that I got on top of the fire truck, flicked the bic, and said, "Burn, baby, burn." And that was sufficient evidence to give me 1 year hard labor. Now, I'm saying this because when we talk about people making a commitment, understand that we are talking about a kind of life and death struggle out here that we're going to have to go through, and that there are going to be some sacrifices you have to make. So when you find that courage, you should step onto the pages of history, but recognize that it ain't going to be a smooth ride. From that point on, the FBI managed the Orangeburg Massacre charges against me. When I went to Atlanta, right after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, who counseled me against to be a conscientious objector and refused to get inducted into the service, when I got to court, they were supposed to sentence me, and they were supposed to set a bond. But what happened was that the FBI came in and said that I was charged with moral turpitude in South Carolina. So they denied the bond. So I had to go to 14 different institutions. I went to Atlanta City, Fulton County, Newnan, Georgia, Rome, Georgia, Florida, Atlanta Federal, Nashville, Lexington, and then ended up in Terre Haute, Indiana in a 4-month period. And that was the part of the process of disorienting and kind of getting you all caught. So I'm saying that because that was a part of what happened. And so for the next 10 years, either the U.S. Marshal's Office or the FBI, as a part of their COINTELPRO program, monitored all of my activities and actions for a period of 10 years. On one occasion, I got on an airplane to go to Canada to do a radio show. And when I got in Canada, they pulled me aside and said that the United States had indicated that I had moral turpitude on my record and that they should not allow me to come in. They put me on the next plane back to the USA, and for almost 15 years, I could not use or have a passport. Now, this is some of what I wanted to just share with you because I think it's important for you to understand. Sometimes people see you and they get the idea that there's something that's magical or something that's different about you. I'm the young boy that grew up in Denmark, South Carolina, just like most of you all around here grew up in some small town area. And it's not about playing any games or getting any recognition. It never has been about that. Even in civil rights, I learned from Ella Baker and Bob Moses about self. That simply means that you don't want to be recognized. You want your work to be recognized. You want your challenge of the National Democratic Party recognized. You want the right to vote to be recognized. So I have that track record of being in Selma, in those other places, the Mississippi Meredith March, the Selma March, the March on Washington, you name it during that period. Even ran the South Carolina campaign for Jesse Jackson for president in 1984. So we have been involved and we have been engaged, but it's just the work that we are concerned about, not concerned about recognitions and all that kind of stuff. But then there was the last one we'll talk about, and then we'll go ahead and close this out because I don't want to keep you here long, because you know how we talk about how the preacher did over Sunday dinner. But the last thing that the state did was that I had a daughter that was born while I was in prison. So we requested that that we go to Greensboro and be with the family when she was born. And they delayed and delayed and delayed, and then finally they said, no, you can't go. And I'm very proud to be able to ask my daughter, Nosiswe Abadami Sellers, who is here today, to stand up so you can see the baby girl. I'm going to make this the last time that I really have to go through a lot of anxiety and all to come to a program like this. So I have to come and I have to sit way in the back because it's not good for me. I was talking to somebody else that you know, and that was Carl, and whether or not he was going to be here today. And he said he couldn't make it, too much anxiety. So I just want you to know that we have everybody in our hearts. All the survivors. And we know the pain and suffering that you go through. Most people don't know about the PTSD that we all go through. But we have to fight through that. And that's just not those people who were out there that night. There were people who were in the student body. New people who were killed. New people who were in. New people that were by what happened. And so I'm going to go sit down and tell you that take that under consideration, and please understand that you have a chapter that you need to write on the Orangeburg Massacre and tell your story to the rest of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. My God, my God.
I am so thankful to be here in this moment, knowing that what we are celebrating is his work, just like he said. But who could go through what he has gone through and still be able to come back on the campus to talk to us? Another round of applause. We were challenged. Did you hear the challenge? We must tell our stories. We must tell our stories. Do you know about the African proverb that says, the hunter will always be glorified until what? The lion learns how to write. We must tell our stories, and we'll do it not so that we'll get the recognition, but so the work can be recognized. Thank you so much for those awesome words. And I will just say this, if you understand PTSD, some of us have picked it up during the pandemic when we saw the knee on the neck. It changed our lives. Not because we didn't understand this kind of treatment, not because we've never seen it, but because everybody else in the world got a chance to peek behind the door and understand what it was to be black in America. And let me tell you, it's just like people opening your door and realizing you've been abused by your spouse for years, but you put makeup on the bruises and you went along trying to make a great life, knowing that there was always danger around the corner. And I thank God that he's going to bring us to the place where we can set down PTSD and we can be some what? Beautiful African-American people enjoying our culture and enjoying each other without the trauma of being disenfranchised. Thank you again for your inspiring words, Mr. Sellers. And we are going to move on to something that's also wonderful in today's ceremony. We will now have the presentation of the Smith Hammond Middleton Social Justice Awards by our interim president, Alexander Conyers. President Conyers.
Good afternoon again, and thanks for being here today as we pause to reflect the pain and suffering from 54 years ago. Dr. Sellers, thanks for sharing with us today. We got the message. You said that this will be your last time speaking at a ceremony like this. We want to thank you for running your part of the race. You have passed your baton. We've accepted your baton, and we will continue to run this race and make up for lost ground. To the families of Smith, Hammond, and Middleton, thank you for being here. We know that this doesn't get any easier. To our survivors, please stand again. Thank you for never giving up. Thank you for being here today like you have been for the last 54 years. You are the true epitome of bulldog tenacity. Thanks for allowing me to stand on your shoulders. I'd like to recognize again our Board of Trustees led by Chairman Rodney Jenkins and any other elected guests who are with us today. I know we have the Mayor of Orangeburg, Mayor Butler, as well as the Mayor of Charleston, South Carolina, Mayor Tecklenburg. Thank you for being here. Before I present our Social Justice Awards, I'd like to personally reflect. There's a principle called Miles' Law. In short, it states, where you stand depends on where you sit. As a student here, I often tried to place myself in their shoes on that night and wondered, what would I have done? And then later, as a parent of a student here at South Carolina State, I wondered about local law enforcement. Are he and his friends safe from those who should protect them? Are they safe at a traffic stop? Are they safe jogging in a neighborhood? Are they safe walking with a bag of Skittles? Now, from where I sit today, I reflect on the darkest days of our 125-year history and try to imagine the leadership of then interim President Nance as he carried the tremendous weight of leadership for this great university, this community, this state, and yes, even this nation. In 1968, he had to endure losing men and having those under his charge shot here in these United States of America on this campus, not in Vietnam, where war was raging in 1968. I reflected on my time in combat in Afghanistan, vowing to bring my men home all alive. But Nance, interim President Nance, was not in Afghanistan. He was not in Iraq. He was not in Vietnam. He was in Orangeburg. And we must not ever forget that. In preparing for today, I reached out to a friend and a mentor of mine who was here in 1968. He was the junior class president on that night of the shootings, just like our junior class president today, Mr. Daniel Bowman. And he was later elected as the SGA president for the next year, just like our very own Miss Giovanni Ayers. And he actually dedicated the first SHM Memorial in 1969. He wanted to be here today, but he couldn't. So he shared his thoughts with me. And I quote, "Despite the passage of time, February 8th, 1968 is as fresh in my memory today as it was 54 years ago. Although the racial tensions that contributed to the tragic outcome of that day have improved, my heart still yearns for a day when we can all get along, regardless of race. I am taking the liberty to speak for so many others who feel as I do, saying that we continue to lift the families of Henry Smith, Samuel Hammond, and Delano Middleton in fervent prayer. We are eternally grateful that our then South Carolina State College interim president, the late Dr. Maceo Nance, provided leadership that contributed to even fewer deaths and injuries on that fateful day. The Honorable Dr. Clifford L. Stanley, class of '69, Major General, United States Marine Corps, retired. Now, as we plan for our awards, the word social justice embodies a long history of dynamic, vibrant movements that make up the long struggle for human rights and equality in this nation. Today, activists for this cause continue to emerge with effective campaigns that target deep-seated issues in society. Their strides towards progressive change are built on demands for another, a better world, and based on racial justice, universal human rights, fairness, and genuine grassroots democracy and beyond. As you have witnessed today's event, you see the significance of this annual ceremony. We honor the sacrifices and victories of those who fought for racial equality. Here at South Carolina State University, we will continue to work on game-changing initiatives with strategic collaborations that will truly move the social justice needle. South Carolina State University has been at the forefront of the civil rights movement for many years. It is at our core, and we must remain true to our core. At South Carolina State, we aim to educate the people of our university community and across the state and nation how to advocate and advance issues for social justices. We look forward to laying the foundation this year for establishing in standing up our Eradicating Racism and Constructing Equity Center of Excellence and Justice. The E-Race Center will be designed to address all aspects of social injustice and racism through research, teaching, training, and service. We have announced this last year, but this year we will stand that center up. We have mourned the tragic loss of these shining stars in our history, and we have yearned for justice and accountability we felt would never come. Now, through researching, teaching and training, and service, a historic sequel will be written. It is our hope that one day we will reach a spirit of understanding, forgiveness, new awareness, and sensitivity, and move to an era where there is true liberty and justice for all. Now let us direct you to a very special part of this ceremony when we shine a spotlight on champions of social justice. The 54th ceremony marks the 8th year in which we present the Smith-Hammond-Middleton Social Justice Awards. The award is given to individuals or organizations that have demonstrated a commitment to using their influence to highlight or eliminate injustices for those deprived of their civil rights. Welcome, class of 1971. Those words greeted incoming freshmen who had arrived on the campus of South Carolina State College in the fall of 1967. Bright, enthusiastic, nervous, optimistic, curious, energetic freshmen ready to pursue their dreams and place in a changing world. They arrived on campus from as far away as Trinidad, the Virgin Islands, and as near as Orangeburg, South Carolina. With them came various cultures and experiences, including discrimination in a racial segregated society during the height of the civil rights movement. So it was only natural that cold evening, February 8th, that many of those curious and ambitious minds seized the opportunity to engage in peaceful protests. Among them were Samuel Hammond and at least 8 other freshmen who fell as wounded victims in what we remember today as the Orangeburg Massacre. From the windows of Lowman, Bradham, and Manning Hall, others watched in mental shock and anguish as their fellow students were carried to this same Brooks Infirmary. With horrible images embedded in their memories and friendships sealed by the fate of February 8, 1968, the class of 1971 forged ahead to fulfill their dreams of building a racially just society. Still enthusiastic and optimistic, the class of 1971 recently donated generously to their beloved South Carolina State University. With wounded hearts, but not broken spirits, these loyal sons and daughters felt compelled to rally to the call of South Carolina State and honor the memories of their classmate, Samuel Hammond, along with Henry Smith and Delano Middleton. With bulldog pride and tenacity, the class of 1971 hopes to inspire others to continue to fight for social justice and thereby leave a legacy for future generations to remember the sacrifices made in pursuit and racial equality for all. Mr. Bobby Eady, a survivor of the Orangeburg Massacre and a member of the class of 1971, will accept the award on their behalf. Sir, thank you for your leadership.
I would imagine that every class that has gone through this university in some way thinks of themselves as being special. But I'm here to tell you this today, The class of 1971 was a special group of people. If anybody doesn't believe that, Mr. Conyers, South Carolina State University, on behalf of the class of 1971, I say thank you.
Our next recipient probably really needs no introduction, but I would read just a bit about her. Gloria D. Powles, a native of New York City, arrived on the campus of South Carolina State as a student in 1966. Since her arrival, she has served in many roles that have helped her beloved alma mater and its graduates to thrive. She earned her Bachelor's of Science degree in elementary education with a concentration in special education. Her professional role began in 1972 when she returned to South Carolina State to work in a federally funded program formerly called Special Services Programs. Over the years, she has contributed to the retention and academic success of countless students and student athletes. In 1991, she assumed the position as the director of Title III and assistant professor of counseling in the Department of Human Services. For over 28 years as the Title III director, she has played a key role in enhancing the university's programs and activities to fulfill the mission and goals of South Carolina State University. She played a pivotal role in securing the funding for the creation and building of the Smith Hammond Middleton Monument that we will unveil shortly. She's also one of our greatest advocates. She's always stressed to anyone who listens to support the university in any way you can, including being an annual donor. She has a proven track record as an unmatched resource and possesses a wealth of knowledge which she is always willing to share. She's a member of Williams Chapel African American Episcopal Church, Orangeburg, where she serves on committees for annual conferences, church anniversaries, and is treasurer for Small Steps, Big Strides Daycare Center. She is a Golden Life member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and also served as a volunteer mentor at Whitaker Elementary School. She is the proud and devoted mother of one son, Kendall, and grandmother of grandson, Caden. Her love, care, and guidance also includes her younger sister, Crystal, grandnieces, and nephews. Please join me in thanking Ms. Gloria Powles for her efforts for preserving the legacy of Henry Smith, Samuel Hammond, and Delano Middleton.
I'm sorry. Thank you, everyone. I was told that I need to say something about what has happened with the Orangeburg Monument. When Dr. Fulani showed me the bus, I asked him, what are you going to do with these? He said, nothing. I said, you have to do something with them. You spent all this time. So what I told him to find out how much it would cost for us to bronze them. And he waited and waited and waited, so several years went by. So I went back to him again. I said, this is my last time asking you. And people told him, when Ms. Powers asked you to do something, you better do it, boy. So anyway, I sent him to North Carolina with the bus. He had them bronzed, brought them back, and we unveiled them 2 years ago. And Finally, we had this monument built, and we have placed them in the monument, and they are beautiful. And we will unveil that today. I want to thank my staff, Title III, the class of 71 for giving us additional funds. And if there are any other classes that wish to give us some more money, there are a lot more things that we need to do to finalize this beautiful monument. And I thank the administration for giving me this award today. And I told Conyers when he first came here, there were two things I wanted to do before I leave. And that was to do that monument, and the other one, I can't say right now what it was, but we will, we will talk about that soon. I thank you. This is my alma mater. I love it, and I've been here long enough to make something of value come. And I thought this was the best that I could do. Thank you.
Congratulations, class of 1971, and thank you, Mr. Eady and Ms. Piles. Thank you for your fine contribution to this great institution. We are eternally thankful for your lifetime devotion of seeking social justice for all people. Give them another round of applause. I do have a couple of announcements that I would like to share with you. The Cecil Williams Civil Rights Museum is the first civil rights museum in the state of South Carolina. Come on, let's applaud for that. His museum is a rich resource for understanding civil rights in this community, state, and nation. I would just like to say this on behalf of Orangeburg. I've been here for 22 years, so I consider myself to be from Orangeburg. Don't worry about where I came from. I'm here now. And I would like to say, I tell people all the time, oh, don't sleep on Orangeburg. Don't sleep on the people and the greatness in Orangeburg, because there are some great things happening in Orangeburg, okay? So I just wanted to let you know that you were in a great place. Now, Mr. Williams has been a vital person who has preserved the legacy of the Orangeburg Massacre, and we would like to thank him. Mr. Williams, I know you're probably here. Are you here, Mr. Williams? We'll give him a round of applause anyway. Additionally, the Orangeburg County Library and Center for Creative Partnerships are proud to present 50 copies of John Lewis's wonderful memoir, Walking in the Wind. They're going to present it to 50 South Carolina State University students. For those that have not ever seen the All-Star Bowling Alley, the Center for Creative Partnerships will open the All-Star Bowling Alley from 1 to 3 o'clock p.m. today following this ceremony. So if you haven't been in a while, if you can take it and understand it, please go. For those who've never been, please go so that you can understand more about this story. This is an opportunity for the community to view the site, which is substantially unchanged since 1968, before the preservation work gets underway. Also, we would like to give special thanks to Dr. William and Darlene Hine, Miss Gloria Piles, Mr. Roland Haynes, Mr. Samuel Watson, Mrs. Sonia Bennett Bellamy, and the entire institutional advancement team for making this event a success. Give them a round of applause. Additionally, we would like to give special thanks to the Office of Facilities Management, Ken Davis, Paul Platt, Katie Arendt, and Title III staff, Demetrius Chapman, Margie Myers, and Mitchell Chapman. Give them a round of applause. And last, but certainly not least, we want to thank me. It has been a pleasure today to serve as your mistress. I'll skip something. Mistress of ceremonies. Go ahead, sir.
Please join me in thanking Ms. Robinson, please. We recognized earlier our city administrator who brought us greetings, but I did want to take this time to recognize also our county administrator, Mr. Harold Young, who does so much for us on this university campus. Mr. Young, where are you? I know he's here somewhere, but thank you, Mr. Young, for being here.
Thank you, President. Okay, where am I in the script, honey? All right, it's a pleasure to serve as your mistress of ceremonies this afternoon. For those who wish to join us, we will lead the procession to the Legacy Memorial Plaza for the laying of the 3 wreaths and the lighting of the memorial flame. We do ask that members of the audience remain seated or remain standing to allow the program participants and the family members to be escorted first to the plaza, and they'll be escorted by the nation's finest Bulldog Battalion. So please come forward, the battalion, so that we can, excuse me. You know where I'm from then, right? Okay. Please remain seated where you are while the cadets do this, lead the program participants as they come forward. Okay, great. And thank you so much for being with us today. Remember your challenge. And remember, in the words of Whitehead and McFadden, baby, ain't no stopping us now. Thank you.
cool too. Hey,
will never forget the importance of the historical day, of the impact that had on this community. On behalf of the City Council and me, I want to read this proclamation. In the early 1960s, there were many peaceful civil rights marches and sit-ins at Orangeburg to protest the segregation. And hundreds of young people from Claflin University and South Carolina State University was arrested and incarcerated. Whereas the passage of this Civil Rights Act in 4 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 outlawed disenfranchisement, whereas the college students led by John Stroman protest a exclusion of African Americans from the All-Star Bowling lane. And whereas on the night of February 8th, 1968, South Carolina State uh, that tragic night in Orangeburg, and we have made tremendous strides, and we are trying to reconcile and from this. Whereas Orangeburg solemnly those who dedicated themselves to the Butler, the mayor of the
loss was one of South Carolina State's very own. One of my friends, Sharonda Singleton.
And I must share with you a personal experience. I remember that day and that week. Uh, it's blazoned in my own memory. I was only in the 8th grade at the time. And y'all, what a remarkable presentation and testimony from Dr. Sellers we just heard. Wasn't it remarkable? And I was thinking of Congressman John Lewis, whose statue is right here before us and was in Charleston just the other day, because students at the College of Building Arts built the pedestal upon which he stands right now, that he's here on. And they did a great job. You should take a look at it. But I was thinking about Dr. Sellers and the memory from 54 years ago when I was a paper boy for the Times and Democrat. And I would go down every morning and roll my papers and read the articles in the newspaper of interest. And that week, there was nothing but news of how Dr. Sellers, Cleveland Sellers, was a troublemaker. And I think of the words that Congressman Lewis used, God bless his soul, to make good trouble. And that's what Dr. Sellers did, y'all. He made good trouble. And that's what our brothers here, Smith, Hammond, and Middleton, did. They were making good trouble. Did they not? So as that pedestal was made in the city of Charleston, I'm here today for our citizens to tell you, we uplift together. We uplift you and ask you to uplift us. Back to my experience. Can you imagine what it was like in 2015 when I ran for mayor of the city of Charleston, having lived here in 1968, and thinking this kind of thing could never happen again in these United States? We're making progress as a people, right? And we had the Emmanuel Massacre in June of 2015, almost 50 years later. What an irony. Let's keep our eyes on the prize, make good trouble, and be uplifted in the Spirit of God. Thank you very much.
Amen. So at this time, we will unveil the monument. If we can, Dr. Falani, where are you? Please. The bus see behind me, coming in Middleton, was created by South Carolina Dr. Falani. Please come forward, sir. On the behalf of the entire university and alums across this country, thank you for capturing the essence of what we remember vividly. Thank you.
So at this moment, we would like the family members of the Smith, Hammond, Middleton families to join us. And we do a lighting of the torches that is standing in the center here. We will ask a representative from each family, the Middleton family, Sue, Dr. Smith family.